Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special video on my new channel. So this new channel's called Josh's, or Josh.H, not Josh's, what am I talking about? So yeah, so in this video I'm just going to give a bit of background on like my passion, which is to be an author obviously, and I'm just going to talk about how like I got into reading, writing, that sort of thing. Just thought I'd give a bit of insight on what I'm like and whatever. Because this is what this new channel's all about, so it's talk about reading, writing, all that stuff. Just to sort of encourage people to sort of promote, obviously in a positive way, how, you know, the new writers or whatever. So yeah, so my first actual experience with reading was was in primary school when I started reading the Knife Wimpy series by Jeff Kinney, and he's like obviously he's quite known obviously. I know. And pretty much every kid probably read those books. But I do resonate with the character Greg Heffley a lot in those books, because the whole how he has to try and sort of navigate life, you know, being in these sort of hilarious, sort of crazy situations in life that he has to sort of go through. And that's pretty much what every kid sort of relates to. You know, that's what's kind of cool about it. And also the other experience books, so I used to read the Beast Quest books, which I've still got them, I've still got the old version of them or whatever. But because the thing that interested me about them is the mythology behind it, because mythology is quite an interesting thing, obviously. Right, stuff like that. I'll say mostly that's what I enjoy about like that sort of stuff. But yeah, I used to actually do like sketches around like I used to trace around the pictures on like in the book, right? Because I was because I was inspired so much about like so interested in mythology and stuff like that. But I just thought, like, it's just interesting thing. They talk about gods, goddesses, whatever. That's what's cool about it, you know. That's just all that stuff you get taught and stuff. And then that's it. So those books are sort of what got introduced. Because you know how like when you were a kid you read like picture books and stuff. It just kids can just sort of like you get into a book just by like what's in the picture, and then obviously you build up to sort of like reading like comic books and also books like proper literature without like pictures in it, obviously, to create a sense of imagery, which imagery is a cool thing. Now I'm going to talk about like my second experience, but obviously when you go through high school, sort of I had some really like good teachers, obviously good English teachers, and they sort of helped me sort of figure out all like what to do or whatever. I think that's exactly that point I know what to do, obviously, because you're quite young and stuff, but I was being taught really well by the English teachers. Anyway, like they taught me like the important stuff about how to sort of structure sentences, how to begin stories, or to sort of use like devices and stuff. Devices such as like similes and metaphors, which are my favourites, obviously. And just that sort of stuff they teach and put it embedded in your head. Like the important stuff that you just need to know and stuff like that. Even though not many people would care, I was actually the one that actually gave a damn about the actual what I was being taught. So anyway, back to that. I'm not going to name any names of my teachers, but I just want to keep in mind they actually are teachers. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have got inspired by reading and writing. So anyway, I used to produce like really good work for teachers, obviously. So I used to sort of I write stories to go and used to say that's very impressive, and it's like, oh, thank you and stuff like that. But you know, obviously build up ideas. Yes, got into sort of like teach something, you know, like drama teachers and stuff, because I had to sort of redo work. But again, that's just something I had to do. But again, you just got to face these challenges in life, and you just get past it or whatever. But yeah, so learning about like Shakespeare and stuff like that may not think like you think, well, that's not going to apply to me. It really does, because I think not for Shakespeare, he wouldn't know anything about literature, he wouldn't even know anything about language. Even though the language that he uses sometimes we wouldn't really use now, because obviously it's a bit old-fashioned. But some of the stuff he says, like knock who's there, and oh my god, he invented them. So he's pretty much the master of writing. He's probably like the proper inventor. He's a pioneer in the in that world, obviously. But you think about it, like, you know, that's just like, if you can hear sounds, I apologise, because people can sort. It's just these headphones pick up loads of sounds. But forgive me, I apologise. Anyway, let's continue. So yeah, Shakespeare, like, so when you think of stuff like Hamlet and Macbeth, you're like, all these characters are really cool. He ends things mostly in tragedy most of the time, But even though you might not think you're going to use any of his ideas, you're going to get inspired by him somehow without even knowing it. And that's what teachers put in your head, like, it's important or whatever. But I used to have nice teachers, like, you know, like, they were cool teachers. They were yellow man, wouldn't argue and go, okay. But you know, sometimes you don't get on with all your teachers, obviously, but this is only a little thing. But anyway, they do help you a lot, so remember, teachers do actually help you with stuff. So, yeah, I thank God my teachers for getting me into this, you know, the world of books or whatever, and, you know, the world of literature and all that sort of thing. Because what I find, like, cool about literature, it's not just, like, it's the language that's put in it. So, the English language is a very cool, it's a complex thing, like it's, you can take it from anything. So, like, devices, they used to, like, teach us stuff like the Forester and Asimo, so that's, we used to, they were just terms that they just used it to sort of help us remember the stuff. So the Forester is used when you, like, talk, like, how you structure, it's the structure of a letter, whereas the other one is how you structure, like, stories and sentences and stuff, just to make it more appealing to read, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, now we're going to talk about, like, the now and how, like, we sort of develop ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, so I got introduced, you know, to Stephen King, but I think I knew about Stephen King before then, but I didn't really give anything into account his reading and stuff. But I read his first book, which was The Institute, and that's about kids that get taken to this institute and they get put in rooms that look like their rooms at home. And they've been put, there's no wall, there is walls, but there's no, like, windows and stuff. But the whole perspective on, like, children in that, the Stephen King's very good at writing characters really well, especially children, because he writes them as, like, in a very mature way where they're not childlike, but they are still, like, children, obviously. But he just makes you just think about stuff, because he's able to build worlds up, communicate things a lot, like, it's just really cool. But the main focus of the story, The Institute, isn't necessarily powers, it's about the characters themselves, which is interesting, but that's all that matters, you know. Build the world up, it's still entertaining, it does feel like Stephen King, the surrealism and realism that he blends together works beautifully, honestly. That's just like, it's like music to your ears. But yeah, but the reason I like Stephen King is just about how sort of how his mind works. It's like a sponge, like, you know. It's just that he takes in ideas, some of them might spill out, but every book you think of, you're like, these are just great. He's like a genius in the making or whatever. And what's cool, good is, like, he's relevant. Is that he's still relevant. People still talk about him. He's still writing books. And you just show you think, like, I don't know how old he is now, but he's like, it's insane. But he always like I say he's like the David Attenborough of writing, right? Because he makes it look easy. It's like clockwork. Like, it's just the way his mind works is just cool. One piece of advice that I will take away from him is the fact that he says, when you think of your ideas like when you're in a sieve, like the sand, he says all the sand that spills out are the bad ideas, and the gravel that stays in the actual sieve are the good ideas, and they stay. So he's saying, remember, always good ideas stay, the good stuff stays. And that's just that's very impactful, because it shows you that even though all these ideas that you got, some bad, some good, there's always going to be a turmoil, and you're always going to find something that you're going to be passionate about writing and stuff in it, and you think that's going to work, that's going to work out, that's going to be my go-to for an idea. And then all people are inspired by other authors and stuff, and I'm inspired by Stephen King, because what I find interesting is that he's able to write short stories as well. Well, they don't feel jarring, they don't feel rushed, but they just feel like he took his time in it. They do feel like short stories, they're brief, but they do impact you quite a lot. They do stay with you, which is like... But that's what's good about a book, if you can think about it in the long terms, that you think, oh, this helped me, this got me inspired to write and stuff. You just think, that's a really cool achievement, you know. I've read a book, that's really cool. But then we're going to talk a bit about Lee Child now. So, with Lee Child, obviously his main genre is thrillers, obviously. And I got introduced to Jack Reacher, because people told me, you got Jack Reacher, it's really cool. And I'm actually thankful that I do read. I've still got quite a few to read, obviously. But the first experience, so I read the first book that he wrote, Killing Floor. But what's good about Steve Lee Child, you can read him in any order. And that's what's good. So just start with anything like that. You can just read any order, any random book, whatever. I need, Lee Child mentioned something about Thesis of Minotaur, because you're seeing people think like Blonde Jack Reacher are inspired by that character, because he's a hero that's a bit cocky. He gets the woman, he ends up going into a cave, he has to fight a villain, he has to find a way out, and if he gets the woman, obviously, if he works out, but then he has to leave, obviously, which is sort of what like inspired like the Ian Fleming and stuff to make, you know, with the James Bond and stuff, and inspired Jack Reacher. I found out like the reason he got the idea, like he got the idea when he was actually reaching for something in a shop. The shelf and said, someone said, "Oh, that could be a good idea for the name." He thought that'd be a good name for a character, Jack Reacher, because he was reaching for something on the shelf. And I thought, that's cool, because that's just what's cool. Something so small can start like that. Because any aspect of your life, anything that you can think of that may be small, it might become an idea. It might become something good. But what I like about Lee Child, he's able to obviously write a character, obviously not as perfect, but just as human. And he's like, yeah, military training, but he's not a perfect person. Because if he says you can make a character that's good, perfect, it's just going to be boring. And you can make a villain that's just evil for the sake of it, he's going to be not interesting either. You've got to find the right balance. You've got to have an empathetic villain, and you've got to have a character that kind of gets on your nerves a little bit. But that's what's cool about it, those two people, obviously. Okay, we're going to talk about another inspiration of mine, which is Stan Lee. And we all know who Stan Lee is. He's creative of Spider-Man, and he's pretty much what started Marvel Comics, you know, with Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or whatever. The creation of Spider-Man. So he got that idea one day when he just saw a fly on the wall, and he thought, oh well, think of a superhero name, Flyman. No wait, that doesn't work. Mosquito Man? No, Spider-Man. And he thought, like, he didn't come up with that idea, we wouldn't have Spider-Man today, but now he's become such a known character, a well-known character within the Marvel Universe. So everyone's just like, oh, he's cool. But he thought of an idea, and he thought, like, I'm going to make this superhero a teenager, and I'm going to have him have problems, and I'm going to have him find a way to sort of balance those problems, you know, with the sense of responsibility. Because I just think something like that, that's what inspired me to sort of write a little bit. Like, I had a superhero story that I wrote. It was about, it's called White Hawk. It's like, it's just a work in progress one, but it was about, like, obviously, a kid, obviously, who gets these powers, and he has to sort of find a way to sort of balance out his superhero life with his normal life, and sort of he has to sort of get past that stuff. So the responsibilities there are actually apparent within any character, but again, you can be inspired by any author that you think of, just as long as you're not doing a carbon copy. And I know, like, Stan Lee isn't an author, but he's one of those people that is created characters, so like similar to authors, they create characters as well. So it's actually kind of a cool thing, you know, to think about. Like, all these ideas just come from a little place. They just come from just somewhere. And obviously, I got a Funko Pop of Stan Lee, so there'll be a short of that on the other channel soon. So hope you stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's what it's all about, you know. And all ideas that you have may be bad and they may be good, but you just got to figure it out. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is just like, obviously establishing like if you've got, I'm just going to mention this now. If you've got loads of ideas, just remember like again, that you can have any idea, it doesn't really matter what it is. And obviously be inspired by other people. But keep in mind, whatever like person you read, don't just stick with just reading that one author or whatever. Try and have a look for different authors. Like, I've heard of different authors, like you've got Lee Child, you've got Stephen King, you've got Neil Gaiman, you've got Dan Brown. You've got all those big names and whatever, but keep in mind, like, you'll be able to find other ideas and stuff from other books. So you just got to keep in mind. So what I do, that's what I try and do. I try and sort of read different genres and such, because that will help you. Honestly, like, you may think that it's not going to help you, but you think about it, it really does going to help. It is going to help. And the same back to Stephen King. He's like, shows perseverance and stuff. Doesn't give up on ideas. Just because that example, like, when you think about when he did Under the Dome, that originally was just an idea that he got when he was young, but because he thought it was too ambitious, he was too ambitious with it, he couldn't really continue it, so he thought, I'll come back to it later, and that's what he persevered. He was resilient. He showed resilience by not giving up, even though he gave himself a long break. It doesn't matter if it's a long break, and he went back to it eventually because he knew he got something, he cracked it, he managed to think of something. But again, that's why they say your mind's like a sponge, because sometimes the ideas sometimes spill out, sometimes they come back, sometimes they get retained in your memory. But not every single idea, but that's what he did, so you just don't fret about getting stuff like writer's block and stuff like that, because writer's block isn't really, it's nothing to be ashamed of, obviously. It's something that you don't really need to be, like, annoyed about or whatever, so that's what I like to say. I like to say, keep in mind that not all your ideas are good. Sorry, I had to pick up there. Sorry. So yeah, but you just gotta make sure, yeah, good ideas, bad ideas, whatever. As long as you've got them, that's fair enough or whatever. Like, don't give up. You might think, oh, this book's not gonna work. It's just atrocious. But you just have to look for it from a different perspective and you just think, I'm gonna, like, just calm down. I can take a break from this if I need to. If this isn't going anywhere. But feel free, if you feel like it's going somewhere, then have a look. But just keep in mind, like, you're not gonna get it overnight. You want to make sure it's not washed and stuff. And obviously, you are human. You are gonna make mistakes, but you just think about it from different ways, different angles and stuff. Then you'll figure something out, and then you'll get into the flow. Because the first book is always the book that's the hardest to write, obviously. Because you say when you got a second book, you've established how you are able to write a story for the first one. You just got to do it for the second one. So it's like rinse and repeat every time you do a book. But again, that's it. Once you get past being the difficulties of the first one, you'll be able to think of something else. But the only difficulty we come from the second book is usually, it's not necessarily a difficulty, but it's coming up with a different idea, different characters. Like, it can be similar to the other book or whatever, but it depends. You can have it can be a series, but you can just have the same character in a different situation. That's kind of similar to the other ones, but again, you can have similarities and stuff. Like, don't feel like again, don't have it be a carbon copy, but at the same time, don't worry about it being too different. Because you think Jack Reacher with Lee Child, all those books are Jack Reacher, so all of them about the same character. The kind of a same plot is kind of similar, but like there is. So remember, he said you can have some change, but don't have it be completely different, or don't have it like deter too like away from the plot too much or whatever. You just think of it like in different ways and stuff. And yeah, back to the point with Lee Child. So he actually got the idea for Jack Reacher when he was in a shop, right, and he was trying to reach something off the shelf, and he thought, or like an idea popped into that. He thought, I'm gonna call this character Reacher, and he thought like, well, pick your name Jack and go Reacher, oh, because he was reaching for something on the shelf. So I thought, that'd be a cool idea for a character. And then that's it. That's where characters are born. So even if something so simple, doesn't have to be complicated. An idea just pops up just like that, some little situation. Like, you can think of any author tell like stories about how they just got an idea like just randomly. But this is the thing, this is what you just got to keep in mind. You think, oh, these ideas come from somewhere. Even if it's a little place, it doesn't have to be a fantastical idea. It could just be something as simple as just the name of a character, or a little bit of a plot, or you just something that just inspires you, or you might make references to. You can do that, and the whole thing about realism versus surrealism, like, I do like that idea. Realism is about trying to make something something like realistic or whatever, whereas surreal is something that obviously cannot happen, obviously, which is mostly what Stephen King does. But he sort of combines the two, where it's a realistic world with a lot of surreal goings on, is what I say. And Lee Child kind of does that as well, but he sort of goes for more, like, he rather goes for something that's plausible rather than accurate. So again, if you can't remember the name of the place, you write in terms that with every reader, when you read it, they can understand it like fluently or whatever. So you just got to think of it from the top like that. So there you go. So ideas can come from somewhere, doesn't matter what it were. And also remember, just keep in mind how you're going to approach a story and how you're going to make clear to the reader, obviously. So how you're going to figure that out. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this. Okay, one more thing actually for this. So again, like, you think of an author, they've got their own style of it. You can be inspired by their advice, or you can follow their line, but you don't have to do it directly the same. It's what I'm trying to convey, or whatever. I used to use a lot of big words, so I apologise. And also, if there's noises, if you hear noises and stuff, apologies again. But you know, but yeah, just keep that in mind. Ideas have got to come somewhere. Like, any idea, that could be any idea. It could be something to do with fantasy, sci-fi, just regular old fiction, or just anything like that, thrillers. Okay, we're going to move on now to some books that I recommend to people that people should read, and like the very sort of the main reason you'd want to be an author. Like, these sort of books are sort of inspire a lot of people, or whatever. So yeah, I'm just going to talk to them about now. So I remember that someone gave me I don't want to give too many people names or whatever, but they introduced me to obviously H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, which if you've not read that, you need to read that, because if anyone's like into sci-fi, you'll find it really interesting. Like, you want to write sci-fi, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a sci-fi book that you write. Anyway, what I enjoyed about the book is the sense of dread that you feel. Obviously, because you imagine, an alien invasion. That it's a terrifying concept, and you think that's what the whole book's about. Is how people get like paranoid, thinking, we're going to be struck down or whatever. Man, he's like these creatures that swim these like these tripod sort of machines. And it's really like cool, because no one would actually think of anyone writing something like that. And it's sort of, because it scared people, because you start believing. You used to think, oh god, imagine this happened or whatever. And if we weren't for that book, we wouldn't be having any things like, they wouldn't have Independence Day, we wouldn't have Hitchhiker's Guide, we wouldn't have anything like that. We wouldn't have Star Wars for a start. So but that's because that's a really old book, obviously, about in the early centuries or whatever. I'm not sure what century, but it's a very influential book, and it's something that you just need to read, like if you're passionate, if you're into sci-fi or whatever, or just read it casually. And also, we're going to move on to a book that I consider one of my, like, a book that everyone should read. This is the book that needs to be like taught about in like wherever or whatever, because it's just very important, just of what it sort of talks about, all the topics in it and stuff. And that book is 1984 by George Orwell. And yeah, so people have recommended Animal Farm to read as well, because that's a good one. But there's something about 1984. There's just something, the sort of political side of stuff. It talks about, obviously, the idea of something called totalitarianism, which is obviously like, and it explains about stuff, what that entails and what that's about, and what, like, imagine living in a dystopian world where you couldn't really have you couldn't have free thoughts. It was considered a crime to have your own thoughts. And all these sort of like ideas and sort of topics that he tackles and talks about, George Orwell, like, he's just very, like, he's just, because his brain's very expansive, he knows a lot about the world and stuff. And he's made actually a few predictions, so he's literally got the talent to actually write something and think, this is going to happen in the future. It's like he went forward in time, in a time machine, and saw the world, what it was going to look like, and thought, going to write a book about that. So all these sort of, like, the ideals, and sort of, he talks about stuff like religion, he talks about just pretty much anything you can think of, stuff about, like, religion, politics, like, obviously totalitarianism, and obviously there's different things like involved, like chastity, adultery, all that sort of stuff, that stuff that, like, we need to, like, keep in mind and stuff, and how, like, the world starts to turn out about. But again, it's just a very clever book. It's an interesting book. It puts things into perspective. It makes you think about what you've actually got now, and what, like, you should be grateful for. So yeah, again, there's two book recommendations, books that, like, obviously I do think George Orwell, you need to read that one more than the other one, but H.G. Wells is good. I want to read actually The Time Machine and The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, which they'll be good to read as well, because I want to kind of see how he sort of how he talks about how does he do a time traveling story or Invisible Man story. How does he make it interesting? But I have no doubt that those books are going to be just as good. So yeah, so that's what I was thinking about. So this is what I think. So remember to, like, any book that you think you might not think you're gonna like just attempt it and just try it. Because you never know, like, you might think, I'm not going to write a sci-fi book, I'm not going to do anything like that, but it still helps, because it gives you more ideas, it gives you think, because obviously you can be inspired, like, again, a bit, like I said, like, you can be inspired, as long as it's not like a carbon copy or whatever, you're okay. But yeah, that's something that's to keep in mind as well, so. And yeah, just think about it. You got an idea, you might think it's rubbish, it doesn't matter, write that down too, even the good ideas as well, but because I think, obviously, you might need them later. You might think they don't work now, but you might get expanded upon. You might think, there's actually like a better way to this, and you just think, yeah, that's exactly the way it is. So obviously on this channel as well, I'm going to do book reviews and stuff. So that they're going to see on the channel. But you can let me know what books you want me to read and which ones you recommend or whatever. But yeah, again, this is what this second YouTube channel is about. It's about sort of. It's not necessarily promoting things, but it's kind of to just get people, like, ideas to see that sort of this inspires you in any way. It doesn't matter if it doesn't, that's fair enough, obviously. So yeah, so we're going to delve more about, like, we'll talk a bit more about Stephen King. We'll talk ideas again. We'll just expand upon it, even though, like I said, I wasn't going to do it. It's only going to be something brief, obviously. So if you think about that, it's just the way Stephen King just write. I just think everyone should read Stephen King at least like once. You should read one of his books, because the thing is, he doesn't just write horrors. Like, I know it seems like a lot of his books are horrors, obviously, but they might be a little bit like scary or terrifying or whatever. But books that make you feel various emotions, that's what's good about it. You just got to think about it from all different angles. Because what I like try and like say to people is that there's no such thing as can't. You can do it. Yes, you might have people that might think you're not be able to do it. Like, you get held back a lot or whatever, but all those pushbacks, all those obstacles, you just got to just find a way to just sort of bypass that or whatever. So yeah, obstacles are going to keep coming. You could make 1,000 mistakes or whatever, but you're still human at the end of the day. Because people like Stephen King, you really think that he nailed it down for his first, but he didn't. He nearly threw it away, like I mentioned. And his wife's like, no, get that back out of the bin. Like, that's what they said, because he nearly gave up on that book because he thought, this isn't working out. I can't continue with this. I don't know what I'm doing. And then he put it in the bin, and his wife saw him do it, and was like, no, take it out of the bin and continue. And if it wasn't for his wife, or like, if he didn't take that out of the bin, we wouldn't have Carrot. We wouldn't have his first book. That probably might not even have been his first book. But that's what's cool about his short stories, because I found out some of his ideas from that are actually really old ideas, but he just put them in the style of a short story, obviously. And he puts a whole emphasis on less is more or more is less. And what I mean by that is that the short story, even though like it's less work or whatever, it's actually, there's more impact in it. But if something says like if it was put in just the concepts where it was just short, all of what he explains wouldn't be able to be shortened. So again, he builds worlds up, because in short stories you don't really build worlds up, obviously, you don't really need to. But you do have the established, like, so this is the steps that I've heard. So you've got a character, so this is the idea in the short story. So you've got a character, they've got a problem, they try and attempt to fix the problem, they can't, they fail. And then they try and fix it and attempt it again, they fail again. And then the third time, they manage to find a way to bypass or whatever issue they've got. And then they reach a conclusion, and then that's it, obviously. But you still got to keep in mind, you can't rush things, even a short story, even though it might seem a bit weird to say take your time with a short story. But you will figure it out, it does work, like it does make sense, for the longer one, or whatever. And you think about, like, if it's like a long story, even if you got to be able to build up ideas. So you got a beginning, you've got but I do that where you set up a world or whatever, then you introduce characters, and then you get into sort of the middle ground or whatever. Like, no, don't take this as what I'm saying as accurate, because it's not exactly accurate, but it's my take on it, my perspective. So yeah, so you get to your middle, there's something happens there, and then you get into some sort of climax or whatever, and then obviously you finish it off with the ending or something. But remember, with a story, like, you can be ambitious, it's perfectly fine to be ambitious, but don't think you're going to get it all down in one night. Don't think that the first version of the book's going to be the final book or whatever, because that's not the case. Because any idea that you've got, good or bad, they're all important, even the bad ideas. You might think about an idea, I'm just going to scrap that, but you might need it later. Think of it, it's all like a sieve, it's like sand through a sieve. Just think of it like that. The good stuff stays, the good pieces of gravel stay, and all the sand, the bad ideas spill out. But it's important to remember all of them are written down. But I know, like, some of them, they're able to just think of an idea on the spot. If you can do that, that's fair enough, but you got to keep in mind, like, what's going to work for you or whatever. And also, remember, if you want to be an author, you've got to be able to work with a lot of other people, obviously. Publishers, editors, you might not get along at first, but they're trying to help you, they're sort of like support, so they want to make this book, you want to make this book as great as possible, you want it to be readable, you want people to enjoy it. I know, like, there's some authors out there that just don't really care, but people like Stephen King, Lee Child, show you that it is hard, like, it looks easy, but it's definitely not. But again, just because something's hard doesn't mean you can't do it, obviously. Hard just means it just requires a lot more work, it requires a lot more attention, and it requires you to be more careful and sort of be analytical and stuff like that. Like, just thinking outside the box is the perfect thing. That's fine. And also, one great advice is to write what you feel inside. Because if you write what you know, you're gonna hit stages, you're gonna hit bumps in the wall where you're gonna get ideas blocked from your mind, and it's not gonna help you. So be able to expand your mind, you just think what you feel, you can integrate that into your story. Like, what do these characters feel? Where does this story go? How do I use the characters? Remember, the characters I use, like the actual the plot is the actual vehicle for the characters. It's what the characters do in the plot that's important. It's not necessarily the plot itself. Yes, you do need a plot, but again, you don't have characters established, you're not going to be able to have a plot. So keep that in mind. So for anyone who's like inspired by this video, whatever, just like you do you, whatever. Despite like obstacles, remember this isn't an easy road. You'll get there eventually. You just got to keep trying. Just try on, keep trying. You work with other people. Like, this is the thing. You just got to just come up with ideas, because I find you can actually come up with 20 ideas in one day if you think about it. So yeah, that's all my advice today. So I hope you've learnt something from this video. I hope it's inspired you to sort of read or write or whatever, or you know, have any ambition, like give you ambition or whatever. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't get missed out on any uploads. And I will see you later.